a maximum number of amount of microplastics based pollutions are produced by either China or India. Godavari, for example, will produce anything between 2,000 to 3,000 particles per meter cube.
So all these microbeads that we hear in this facial cream, toothpaste and some cleansers and all are made of microplastic.
Yes, 1 liter of bottled drinking water can have up to 40 micrograms particle. Breakdown will be much higher in higher temperature than the colder temperature.
Oh wow, the polymer breakdown gets higher.
Do you think there is more amount of microplastics with respect to seafood we eat?
They can go up to the DNA level to bind. They can go up to the nucleus. They can bind to the DNA.
They're dying because of this.
Each one of Indian actually will be taking close to anything between 38,000 particles actually every day. So one has to be really careful in what kind and how we use the microplastics.
What are the mechanisms by which microplastics can affect health?
They will kill all the embryos. It is not breaking the record of China.
This is a huge statement. Welcome to OncoFlix podcast. Today we are going to speak about another important topic, microplastics and nanoplastics. With OncoFlix, you're going to demystify the aspects associated with microplastics and the impact of the microplastics and nanoplastics on our health.
So when we talk of plastics, it came into circulation in 1900s. And we know in our day-to-day life, we use plastics right from starting your day to ending your day. With plastics, the concern has always been the temperature at which it could release a certain harmful substances like BPA and phthalates, which could be carcinogenic. But when you talk of microplastics, a lot of talk has happened around specifically over the past decade. And we know that it is there in the circulation so much.
Today, we have with us our expert, Dr. Upendra Nongthomba. He is the chairman and department head of developmental genomics and biology at the great Indian Institute of Science. And he is going to be sharing his experiences, sharing his research on microplastics and nanoplastics. Welcome to our podcast, Professor.
So welcome.
Thank you very much for giving me this chance.
So, to start off with, what are microplastics?
So microplastic, definition-wise, it comes from the plastic itself. The size-wise, anything which make the plastic, the polymers, if you reduce it less than, it's supposed to be less than 5 millimeters, are called microplastic, which can go up to 1 micrometers in size. And below 1 micrometers are called as the nanoplastics.
Nanoplastics.
Yeah. So anything which are smaller, they are much harmful to the body because they can get through our blood-brain barrier still. So microplastic name was given by Professor Richard Thompson in 2004, though work has been going on from 1970s, 80s. A maximum number of amount of microplastics based pollutions are produced by either China or India.
Okay.
Right. If you look at the fresh water going into estuary and then to sea, if you count it today, microplastic will be in few trillion every year. For India itself, anything between 6 to 12 trillions of tons are produced every year by river into the sea. I'm talking about 6 to 12 is every river, not all river. Every river. For example, if you look at it, individual river, Godavari, for example, will produce anything between 2,000 to 3,000 particles per meter cube of the water, surface water, whereas the river Hooghly will produce close to 11 to 12,000. So it depends on the how where the river is coming from and how much is the pollution.
So microplastic is basically it comes out from plastics.
Mostly plastic. These are could be two types. One is what we call secondary microplastics. Secondary microplastics are the one which are produced from the existing bigger plastics, and they break down because of mechanical things or the uses. They are secondary microplastics, whereas primary microplastic nowadays you will find in the creams, facial creams, or the painting and everything. You will have microplastic bits already made. And these are what we call as the primary microplastics.
Right, so they're already there in the product.
Yes,
they're not a breakdown product.
They don't have to break down.
So all these micro beads that we hear in this facial cream, toothpaste, and some cleansers and all are made of microplastics.
Yes, mostly are made from microplastics.
And do these get absorbed to your bloodstream, or is it very easy because these are microplastics and nanoplastics? When you apply a cream on your face,
Yeah.
does it get easily absorbed? Don't we have a barrier? Like, for example, you spoke about brain. In brain, there is a blood-brain barrier.
Yeah.
But with respect to skin or with respect to facial application, is there a kind of easy absorption of these microplastics into our body system?
Microplastic, those whose are smaller than 10 micrometer, for example, they can pass the our blood-brain barrier easily. So that it means that all the nanoplastics will pass it through.
Okay.
So we may not call it as a microplastics, but the nanoplastic will pass through it easily.
Okay.
Because they are all smaller than 1 micrometer.
So then it should be absorbed by skin also, whatever
Easily.
Okay. So it's not just the water that we drink or the plastics that we drink with, it's also topical.
Yes, it is. I was mentally prepared that once be very cautious of taking a water bottle, for example.
Correct.
So every water bottle, 1 liter water bottle, if you look at, this work is done by my student Abbas. But all over the world today, we know that 1 liter of bottle drinking water can have up to 40 micrograms particles, which is nano and micro. But the nanoplastics will be up to 90%, whereas only 10% will be microplastics. So I'm talking about drinking water per liter. Just keeping it for 1 month can lead to this many microplastic in our body.
And in this, when you talk about water bottles, does temperature play a very impact in this scenarios? Like, for example,
absolutely.
Bisleri water bottle, if you keep it in the refrigerator, would microplastic absorption into the water is going to be a lot lesser compared to the temperature. Like, for example, if you keep it more than 39 degrees, or if it's exposed to sun, then probably the exposure or the assimilation of microplastics
or
into
the
water
polymer breakdown will be much higher in higher temperature than the colder temperature.
Oh wow! The polymer breakdown gets higher.
Yes.
So it also releases a lot of these phthalates, BPAs at higher temperature. In addition, the microplastic absorption into the water can also go up.
Yes, absolutely.
So which of the primary microplastics or nanoplastic is the most impactive or the most damage causing with respect to the overall health of a human being?
I mean, for the long time, one small compound called as the bisphenol A, which is involved in making of the many plastics, for example, is known to cause what we call as the endocrine disruptor. I mean, it can disrupt everything in our body. But if you forget about bisphenol, I mean, today I can't name every microplastic.
Correct.
We have library of 16 in our lab, for example. But isobutylene, for example, polyisobutylene, we have just worked with polyisobutylene, and we have shown that the concentration which we got from Kaveri water, for example, we have worked with the Kaveri water, polybutylene, polyisobutylene, cyclohexene, for example. These
Is
are
that
only
what is used in PET bottles?
PET bottles and even making of the tire, for
Tires as
example.
well.
Right.
Yeah, so all these things can go into river water.
The
And
butyrene component. That
yes, yes, absolutely. So there are at least 15 which can be predicted easily by using technology, which I don't want to name everything here,
Correct.
but we can name is that FITR, FTIR, for example. This is Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. We can use it, for example. We can use scanning electron microscope, or we can use Raman spectroscopy microscope. These are the one which can predict which microplastic is coming out, for example.
levels and
Level and concentration.
So-
And today we can level each and every microplastic and we can see them properly. Microplastic level, we can see them easily in the confocal microscope, for example, with the fluorescence.
So you mean to say you take the blood from a patient?
Yeah.
Okay. You put them under a mass spectroscopy or
Yes.
probably Raman spectroscopy.
Yes.
And can you just, from a scientist perspective, can you just tell
Which
whether
compound?
which compound is more active
Yeah.
and which is going to cause an impact for patients' well-being or longer survival of that
This we
plastics in the
can-
environment?
We can tell it because most of the compound now individually in a very pure specific way we have worked. Besides this, besides the, for example, river or the sea water, which has the combination of each one of this water will have combination of many microplastic, for example. But whereas when we have worked with individual microplastics, it can cause disease condition in the whole body. Yeah, but the concentration, whatever said and done, will be little higher than the mass concentration when we take it. So because by the time we work with the water, we get filter first because there are many more biochemical things, contaminated biochemical or the biological samples, which can cause diarrhea rather than microplastic themselves. Right? So one has to be really careful in what kind and how we use the water in microplastics.
Sir, I read this article where a study from Amsterdam, they've measured the blood concentration, just like how he mentioned, of microplastics, and they found this PET and this polystyrene, what we routinely use in plastic bags, contain to be at least there in 75% of them. And majoritively, when they measured it in babies, the concentration were more in bottle-fed babies as well. So the paper also told that it is there in the circulation. But what exactly does it do? What exactly health impact? How does it cause? We really don't know. That wasn't the scope of the study. Similarly, when we talk of cancer, we always say that a certain element is there as risk, be it pesticide or water pollution or heavy metals, even microplastic, it is there. It's like a crime scene where a lot of suspects are there. But how really do you pin that, yes, this is what is causing it? Or what are the mechanisms by which microplastics can affect health?
So if you look at the last 2-3 days itself, today people have shown that the microplastics or even the nanoplastic level, they can go up to the DNA level to bind.
Correct.
So isobutylene, for example, isobutylene can go, or the polyethylene, for example, they at the micro, I mean the smaller micro or the nanoplastic level, they can go up to the nucleus. They can bind to the DNA. It means that DNA
It can cause
binding, if
cancer.
it is not causing anything in the area where there is no effect, it is good. But the effect could be in a very damaging DNA regions. Then the DNA damage can happen. And
Correct.
this is exactly what we have shown even with the Kaveri water. I mean, Kaveri water, whatever we have taken it, it can cause zebrafishes, the oxygen level will be down. Then the ROS, we call reactive oxygen species,
Yes.
could be higher, and they can kill all the species. No wonder that if you look at 1960s and 70s, and the number of species found in the Kaveri River was close to 135, 136. Today, if you look at it, hardly around, say, 40 to 50 species are left.
So they're dying because of this?
That's what we would presume.
Correct.
Because all the nanoparticles or the microplastics, they will easily kill
Yes.
DNA. They
The
will
marine
cause
animals.
DNA damage easily, and they will kill all the embryos.
One other thing is, for example, when we were kids, the talk about microplastics was a lot lesser.
Yeah.
But now, because of the media, because of the education, and because of the accessibility to data, we're able to know and learn about microplastics. Do you think, because of the education or the health impact was back in the day much more than what we have right now, and it's reduced in the recent times compared to what was probably 2 decades ago or 3 decades ago?
So we need to take very strong decisions which some of the governments are doing. For example, if you count it in Karnataka itself, from 2015 onwards, the government has taken decision not to use for example, ban the use of the single-use
Correct.
plastics. So 2022 onward, it has been implemented legally that no such production actually should happen in Karnataka, for example. So similarly, we should go ahead and tell the people also, those who are using that
Correct.
single-use plastic can degrade very fast. We know that how much of the plastic which we are using, including today, we know it from the last 3-4 days that milk which are coming from the plastic,
Interesting.
it can cause problem,
Mhm.
right? So tomorrow, very basic research can be done and educate people to ban the use of the plastic as much as possible. And the second thing is that the government should implement education wise, first of all.
Correct.
And the second thing is that also implement some logical things to industry wise, how to not to use the microplastic producing plastics in the market.
I think one other most important thing is probably, many of you would have seen in the news that a week ago, the health authorities of Karnataka have banned using plastics for making idli. A lot of restaurants used to make idli by putting in a plastic cover when they put the batter.
Yeah.
But now that is banned because, again, based on their studies, based on their evaluation, they found the plastic used while putting the batter of idli used to have cancer particles. And I think that is a very good initiative, and this shows the education, probably the impetus given by scientists like yours have created a public impact as well, and probably that has been urged by the government officials in banning these important plastics which causes cancer.
In fact, and when we talk of this Italy specifically, they're steamed at over 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So we can imagine when we spoke of plastics being stored at 35 below to 37 versus steaming idlis on a plastic sheet over 100 degrees, the amount of microplastics released, the amount of phthalates, BPAs that the idlis also would have absorbed could have been humongously high.
Yeah. So absolutely, even the government is following up. So if you look at it, our FSSAI, the Food Safety Standard Authority of India, they have implemented research in microplastic from 2022. So most of our work, our food particularly, and the water drinking assessment is passing from the FSI. But tomorrow, if they have invested already money and everything for such research, and if whatever they find it from their research, if it can be implemented, and as I said, government should take the initiative and the decision not to encourage such companies all over India, it will be useful. Already we have for every river, we have the microplastic particle numbers are there,
Okay.
including the drinking water. Today, drinking water bottles can have very less, like two particles, microplastic particles to, for example, say 20 micrograms. I mean,
Sir, do the commercially available water filters, like the RO filters which we routinely use at house, do they have the capacity to filter these microplastics out?
they do. Many of the industry uh, products which people are using, they also have the microplastic things, particularly carbonated and hydrogen related compounds which can filter
Very interesting.
Microplastic.
So they can filter microplastic.
Yes, up to some extent.
But again, we filter and put the water into a plastic container.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and the heat comes and the whole cycle is there.
So it depends on the how people use. For example, in our family, from the last 3-4 years, we started using glass bottled water rather than plastic water.
Correct.
This is something which people need to start taking decision at their home.
So you mean to say that glass bottles are the preferred modality for storing water and probably drinking water, and probably in Karnataka when you go to the villages as well, they store it in pots,
Yeah.
mud pots as well.
Yeah.
That keeps the water a lot cooler as well, and again, larger particles to sediment, and probably you can take the water from the superficial levels and probably
Yeah.
clean
Once.
water can be added.
The
Yes.
important point that I'm thinking of as and when you're talking this is that, so when we think of water source to destination house, how it reaches, there could be a lot of points in which even the pipelines are coated with plastic. The tank that we have today, syntax as we call it, is plastic. But at least once we filter the water, like how you told, if there are filters that are capable of removing a majority of microplastics,
Yeah.
where you store post that, at least if you can have a control,
Yeah.
somewhere at least, you can reduce the consumption of microplastics.
So the government is giving incentives to such research, including my colleague boss. So they have made hydrogen-based filter, which if it comes in the market, it will be really useful for the at least a smaller amount of the water filter. The government take up the bigger ones where for the public. So the water supply system should come rather than bottled water.
So these filters, which have been developed by the Indian Institute of Science, can also be used in lakes or rivers where the main source of water,
Yes.
either for drinking, to the major cities like Bangalore. Like, for example, we can use it for Kaveri as well.
Absolutely.
Probably to purify and remove the microplastics and impurities
Yes.
coming to the household.
That's
Yeah, exactly.
Sir, I also read that when we spoke of this reactive free radicals and all, these microplastics act like a sponge and they absorb a lot of heavy metals.
Yes.
And heavy metals, contamination is well known, mainly
Yeah.
in groundwater and even in industrial releases. And these microplastics, the more the number is, they absorb them, and indirectly you're taking in a lot of heavy metal contamination also along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So such things actually, whether I should present it or not here, even including the all disease fighting drugs and things. I won't name it, but in India itself, I mean,
Wow.
they were using microplastic-based compounds
Wow.
which could adapt to smaller metals and things. And actually, if you look at it today, long-term intake of such drugs actually causes kidney stones and the kidney problems. And
Very
people have
interesting.
died.
So you mean to say the drug which have been manufactured also use a plastic base, which could also cause an impact, indirect impact?
One way of
For
generating
the packaging of
packaging
the
and the things, yes, drugs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it may not be really a side effect of the drug. It could be because of the packaging that they're getting.
Absolutely. But I think while making also they use plastic
Microplastics.
which can
Okay.
cause microplastic. And ultimately, not only microplastic, also nowadays, they also have impact on the metals,
Metals
which
as well.
can have finally problems for the kidneys and the lungs and things like that.
Is there
Just
a-
like the microplastic.
Correct.
Microplastic also, one of the major thing is that many nanoplastic, for example, are airborne, and the microplastic
Exactly.
also.
So
And
yeah,
and it can, if you take them. I mean, so the lung cancer, for example, can be increased by having the microplastic and nanoplastics.
We started using plastics for routine use. It's because of the ease of it, the availability of it, and the cheaper aspect, cost-wise, which is why every product that we take today, be it food or other materials, we see a lot of plastic in it, whether it is food or carrying or anything. Now we understand that this is having a health impact, and probably this could lead to a lot of diseases, including cancer.
Yep.
So if we have to look at an alternative for plastic usage, right from drug industry to carrying or packaging of materials, what can it be?
So nowadays, the most important ones are actually being not marketed yet, but the your dustbin, for example, can be biodegradable plastics. So which are made from the biodegradable elements. Plastic like looking like compound.
Oh, it looks like plastic, but
it
it's not
looks like plastic, but the moment you use it and you put it in the water for some 1 hour or 2 hours, actually they will degrade.
So one question here, are plastics degradable?
Yes, plastic nowadays, so there are already formulations which are degradable plastics.
Is it going to be expensive to manufacture these
Not-
degradable plastics
not
compared to the
exactly.
traditional ones?
Little more expensive than the plastic which are available in the market, but if you look at the environmental aspects, they are biodegradable.
So one aspect,
They are not made by the plastic.
No, but do these biodegradable plastics also have an health impact compared
No,
to the traditional
No, they are
plastics?
completely degraded with the water.
Very
Yes,
interesting.
yes.
They are safe.
Sir, but do they release so they're not plastic, but they're
Yeah.
made of a material similar,
Yeah.
they're degradable.
Yeah.
But do they also release something similar to microplastic?
Can break down, but their breakdown never ends in the microplastic in the last
Okay.
few years.
Very
Because
interesting.
microplastic and a nanoplastic can last up to, say, anything between 100 to 400 years, but not the biodegradable plastics. Biodegradable
Really?
plastic will be out within, say, a few months or few days.
Oh, that's interesting to know. So when we see a material that looks like plastic and it has a biodegradable symbol there, it means that it is made of this.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So, do you have some kind of threshold of plastics, or probably to say to our public that, okay, fine, this is the acceptable limit of plastics which you can consume or which could be present in the plastic? Is there a kind of scale where, the government can, tell people that, okay, fine, this is the limit of plastics which can be consumed? Is there a safety limit?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment, because the long-term impacts of the microplastic have not been studied.
Okay.
The mechanism for each one have not been studied. So almost all the scientists from every field, including physics, they look at for example, density of the microplastics. For example. Similarly, chemistry people, they look at the chemical nature of each polymer, for example. So similarly, we need long-term impact of each microplastic to look at it and say that, okay, beyond this, we should not allow these compounds coming in the market as a part of the industry and things like that. So decision needs to be taken at a higher level by looking at the money to be invested first of all for the few researchers in detailed research wise, and look at the mechanisms.
So we're talking about, water pollution, probably microplastics in water, water bottles, etc. But we've also heard the air we breathe, including probably, the pollution from abrasion of the tires, okay, or the air pollution, with microplastics is also a possibility. And how does it, impact, and what are the primary causes for the microplastics to be present in the air?
So we can inhale it.
Yeah, we can inhale it.
Yeah, we can inhale it, but such things are still calculated, and in India and including China is now getting better.
Okay.
And they are implementing air purification system everywhere. So in India particularly, we don't have it. Delhi, for example, started having the air purification system. So because of the vehicle and things, the total accumulation source we don't have control over it. The more we have control over it, we will have a control over the total microplastic which is coming out as a pollution.
So the combustion of the petroleum products,
Yeah.
does that lead to giving out microparticles or
Yeah,
microplastics?
microplastic and nanoplastics are.
Okay.
Tires,
Yeah,
when we were
yeah,
talking of
yeah.
Correct,
tires on
correct.
the road, if it is there, if it is a heated environment.
Exactly.
No, I'm just thinking possibly that could be the source of inhalation of microplastic.
Absolutely,
as well.
absolutely. So that is what we found in the Kaveri River.
Okay.
So we look at it. I mean,
Very
most of the
interesting.
comes.
I think we say 90% of human body is made of water,
Water.
but I think more is going to be made of microplastics. now.
Microplastics.
Yeah, water itself, if you look at it on daily basis, we may say it, but roughly round up, each one of Indian actually will be taking close to anything between 38,000 particles actually.
Wow.
Every day from
Every day.
Yeah, from
Oh.
our water and our usage of the things which makes the microplastic.
This is a huge statement.
Yeah,
Sir,
But- yeah, data is there already.
Exactly.
So if you have the power and authority to, at a regulatory level, set a change and at an individual level, what change would you make, sir, to reduce the consumption of microplastic?
Oh, it is very difficult question because this has to come first with the education of the drawback of having microplastic in the environment and plastic usage itself. Because many those which haven't changed to microplastic, they can go into the gut directly and they can cause long-term impact on the animal and the human health itself. They might have not reached to the microplastic level, but they can cause problems. So we need to really look at the pollution which the plastic can cause. And so what one can do is by reducing the usage of the plastic itself.
Correct.
So because it can break down in our gut and when the fecal things go out, it can generate multiple things. Just like whatever is being now released from the river, its river can is actually causing problem at the sea level. To the sea animals. Every animal in the coastal area of India, whether it is eastern side of the coast or the western side of the coast, all they have been polluted with the microplastics.
So your basic research was on microplastics with respect to the fishes, right?
Yes.
So do you think there is more amount of microplastics with respect to seafood we eat or even the fresh water as the same kind of
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Compared to only concern is that the fresh water, river water nowadays have more particle compared to the sea thing because
It's the rivers. I thought it would be the sea.
no, but the sea dilution can happen much faster.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So sea particles are slightly less than the fresh water,
Mhm.
river water.
Very interesting.
So seafood should have less contaminant compared to river then.
Yes, because it get diluted very fast.
Very interesting.
But the final amount which are released to sea is much higher than fresh water is.
We don't really know. As you mentioned, one river could be harboring higher content, another could be a lower.
Yeah, the river where the river releases to the fish, the sea, those area will be little bit more contaminated. Animal will suffer, but ultimately, actually, it is up to the human. How we take the fishes and the other animals,
Correct.
and even including water, as I said. Today, most of the agriculture and things. They are released water which are not filtered, for example. They are using directly from the river.
Mhm.
Tomorrow, those animal also will consume all this microplastic.
It can come into plants as well, sir.
Yes, absolutely. So today, that is why if you look at it, the water used for the fill, for example, they will have more microplastic than the others. Microplastic can be absorbed by the plants and the other animal easily.
Correct.
What wonderful
Correct.
information you've
So
shared.
to conclude, sir, do you think the developed world has incorporated usage of more biodegradable items or biodegradable products in their daily life compared to India and China?
Absolutely. Today, if you look at it, this the last phenomenon which people have counted all over the world came only in 2023. If you look at China, is producing plastic. They are using the plastic components which can lead to production of the microplastic or nanoplastics, right? And we, as the Indians, we are second in the whole world. Compared to Turkey, for example, Turkey also have production, high production, for example. So we need to be really careful in using them. I mean, so many European nations, they have implemented many policies and ideas not to use plastics. Same way India also implement it. It is not breaking the record of China, for example.
Correct.
I mean, we have to seriously think about how to have a good health, which will be useful for the public. I mean, and we need to really put money for the research in the microplastics.
Yes, because what you told is a very important information. At IISC, you have developed a method in which you can get rid of majority of microplastic, both at a large scale and at a house level.
Yes, yeah, and we need to look at it, for example, as I said, biodegradable plastic, for example, how to make it. And nowadays, if you look at it, if you look at the malls nowadays, they use at least paper carrier, plastic carrier.
It's a huge change that we have noticed.
Yeah, so we need to change our attitude. I mean. Yeah.
Great, sir. So I think thanks for taking your time. Thanks for discussing with us the impact of microplastics, and it's, probably the greatest understanding of its impact on health. And coming from a professor who has worked on microplastics, has done great research in the marine environment, and putting, from a doctor's perspective, it is very easy for us to see patients and tell, cancer is there, what stage it is, and what treatment is to be given. But what is the causative factors or a risk factor which could lead to causation of cancer is going to be the most important thing. And here we dive deep in understanding the damage aspect of the major causative factors for cancer. So thanks for your time, thanks for your valuable inputs, and hope to interact with you in the future episodes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.